Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. And today we have a special guest. We have Nick Cedillo coming out of Texas right now, and he will be teaching you about brass and woodwinds. And just to give you a quick background, Nick has done horns for um, our last few projects, and we are so thankful for the work he's put in. And the cool thing is, in the past, we've had three horn players to come in and work in the studio, but now it's just Nick because Nick plays all the horns all at the same time. So, Nick, thank you for your work, and here we go.
All right, guys, can you hear me? Can you hear me? You guys out? Is anybody out there? Before we get started, I would like to give and pay homage to God, God the Almighty, for this great opportunity to share with you guys this wonderful, awesome platform, Christafari. They have gone all over the nation, and it's been a big, huge blessing to be a part of this ministry in any facet, and I know they're going to many places around the world, and the music that I have been able to collaborate with them and the horn parts I know are going as well. So that's a huge blessing. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you for checking out this wonderful Ascend platform. And we are musicianaries. We're musicians on a mission. And let's get started with this master class. So I always like when I see a master class, I kind of want to hear a little something. So I'm just gonna play for you. If you give me a quick couple seconds, I'm gonna get my horns out. I got many horns here, and we're gonna go ahead and play something. You guys can hear that. Let me know what's up. So I'm a multi-instrumentalist, and I play many different instruments. And with that being said, I'm going to demonstrate each one of these instruments with this little backing track that I got here, a little Latin jam. So I'll start off. Okay, give me a second. Are you getting that? Can you hear that audio? So I'll start off with a couple instruments at school, all trumpet, trombone, sax, and just check it out. Trumpet for you. I'm going sax.
and the saga continues. I'm gonna hit a little bit of trombone. This is one of my favorite instruments, and I'm just gonna play it before you. And that's it. You guys got that? Let me crank down the audio real quick.
And while he does that, Nick also, well, he plays alto, he plays tenor, he even throws down a baritone sax, which is a beast, but we won't get into that today. He's a beast at all of them. And one of the things I love about working with you, Nick, is that when we hum out that horn line, you're like, just a second, let me get it. And then boom, from one instrument to the next. We've done a few recordings in the past where we see it in real time, and it's the fastest I've ever recorded. So thank you. I applaud you. Continue on. Love you, brother. We got 28 people ready to learn. I can't wait for the questions and answers as well.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, whole team, Connor, and everybody that's connected. Thank you, and it's also the translation team. Thank you, guys. Let's get started. I got a lot of content for you guys, but we're going to try and make it as simple as possible. So welcome to this masterclass, Ascend Masterclass, and my name is Nick Cedillo. Tell you a little bit about myself really quick. I spent some time on the mission field after graduating Bible college, and I absolutely fell in love with the world, God's world. And there's so many different cultures and different people that need Jesus. And I found that my unique gift for sharing the love of Christ was music. And this is one of my gifts. And I think this was one of my strong gifts that I've been able to impact the world. And I'm so glad to be able to work with Christafari and the whole team to share this gift and to reach the lost at any cost. So with that said, I'm basing this whole masterclass off of 3 principles: listen, learn, and play. Now, the Bible says faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. And I want to also let you guys know that listening is a key part to music. Have you ever been inspired by something that you've heard? Have you ever broke down and cried because of a song? Have you ever felt the music so deep that the hairs stand up on you? Have you ever felt the power that is in music? And that's the power, that's the gift that God has given us. Music is a powerful weapon. Worship is a powerful weapon. Now, before we get started, I just want to kind of gauge the room. Are there more woodwind or brass players? Like, are we able to do a poll to see who's here, or what instruments do you play? Or a good question would be, do you play woodwind or brass? I don't know if we're able to do that.
Let's post in the chat, guys. What instrument is your
I'm
primary?
setting up a poll real quick.
Okay.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Connor is the best.
Awesome.
He is the man.
Connor's
Where are
the
you
man.
where are you at
Connor's
right
the
now,
man.
Nick? What city are you in?
I'm actually in San Antonio, Texas, and it is hot right now, and I'm sweating head to toe. Even though I got ACs and fans blowing left and right, it's hot over here. But this is home.
I'm your number one fan, and I'm blowing.
I
We
got a
got
million
30,
fans in here.
30 in the house right now. This is great. I can't wait to see. Connor's creating a poll. Let's continue on and give it 2 minutes. Connor will interrupt you and oh, there it is, the poll. I see it.
Okay, what do we got
Brass
on the
or
poll? Let me take a
woodwinds?
look.
What do we got? Okay, quick poll. Hit it. More sax players.
I've seen more woodwinds, definitely more woodwinds than brass
So you
players.
think we're gonna find Christafari's touring sax player? I'm gonna give a
Oh,
little
yeah.
shout out as you guys are filling out that poll. If you want to play horns with Christafari, booking at Christafari.com. Send us a little audition and just of you playing, booking at Christafari.com. Send us a video of you playing something, maybe one of our songs, but deliver. All right. What do we got? What's the consensus there, Connor?
There so far, 15 out of 23 people have voted, and 10 people play woodwinds and 7 people play brass.
Okay, tell the rest translators. Tell the rest of the people to vote if they actually play a horn, and let's continue on. So we have a little more woodwinds than brass right now, evidently. Awesome. We'll come back to that in a few minutes, and
Sounds
let's
good.
continue on. Awesome.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. Such an awesome team here, man. So let's go. Now I know we got a little bit more wood. I'll go heavy on the woodwinds, but music is a powerful weapon that God has given us to reach the lost and to touch people. Let's play music that moves people. So I got a couple great tips for you to use music as an instrument to touch people and to move people closer to God. Okay. I'm going to talk about number one, the importance of sound. The importance of sound. Okay. Now, I'm going to skip that first one. It says attitude, because attitude is everything. We know that attitude is everything. But number one, posture is very important, especially when you're playing sax or trumpet. Posture is very, very important. If you are slouching down or your lungs need to be open, you got to have a good posture. You also got to have a good attitude in order to play music that impacts people. So posture is very important. I've seen people that struggle to play because they play either down or they're just, it's, you got to have a posture that's out. That goes outward, a posture that gives off your attitude. If you show up to class and you have a bad posture, that's just not a good thing. So let's show up. Let's have a good posture when we're sitting down, when we're playing. Let the lungs be full and be able to play as best we can. So long tones. I'm gonna give an example. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the saxophone for this one. Long tones are a very important key element to gauge your sound. So this is like a sound check for you. So I'm gonna give you an example of a long tone. Take a deep breath and just play one note and listen to the note. Is it shaky? Is it going up and down? Is it fluctuating? Is it so you want to play a nice steady note. In order to do that, you have to relax and have a good posture. Here's a quick little long tone. Now, if you notice, I am checking my sound as well. I'm listening for shakiness. I'm a little bit nervous right now, so I feel my heart beating. I feel the shakiness. So I want to calm down, relax, and have a nice, good long tone. So that's a great sound check. I still, to this day, do long tones on all the instruments because it helps me check my air and check my body and make sure I'm playing relaxed. Because the best way to play is to play in a relaxed and focusing the airstream, a nice, steady airstream. So that's an airstream check. If you're playing, and I'm gonna give an example of a bad long tone. you know, and there's all kinds of turbulence going on. So if you check yourself, if you're playing those notes and they're just moving around a lot, that's an indication that you got to work on developing your muscles and your body to relax and play a nice steady. It's a lot harder than it looks. Okay, so
That
take
sounds
time
like
to
one of
just
those killer bees, those murder hornets.
exactly. And sound is everything. It's just like voice too. If you're singing also, and you're going, you got to check. You got to do a sound check. Check your. And if you're shaking, and you got to just check. Is my setup too big to where I can't even hold a note? That's not a good thing. So you want to have an easy setup too. You want to have an easy setup on all your horns that allows you to play notes that are easily play notes and access the full range of the horn. Okay. Another thing is tuning check. Okay. Tuners are detrimental to any brass players. And I always say this: friends don't let friends play out of tune. So if you're hearing somebody and you've tuned yourself, always have a tuner. There are a lot of professionals out there that develop their ear to where they don't need a tuner. Now I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to show you a tuner. I got one right here. Here's my tuner. It's a big guy. It's a chromatic tuner. It's got metronome and everything on it. And usually when I record, I have this puppy right there and on close to the mic to where I can see tuning, because no instrument is perfectly in tune, even the sax. Some notes on the trumpet I have to pull out, push in, or lip down or lip up. It's never going to be exactly in tune, so you got to be aware of that. How do you tune this might be very basic for you, but you want to line up the needle to where it's green, sharp or flat. Now, if you know the difference between sharp or flat, sharp like a knife, goes up, and flat, you're too low. So you want to be right close to the center as possible. And tune using an octave. So tune the low note and tune the high note, and then find the happy medium. Some people will tune the high note and the low note will be way off. So find a happy medium between both. Next tip is don't switch your equipment mouthpieces too often. Okay. If you switch your mouthpieces all the time, you're always switching. It takes years to learn your equipment. And if you're always switching, you're setting yourself back up to square one. So I recommend if you have a mouthpiece and if you recently switch, spend 6 months to a year playing that mouthpiece till you realize, you know what, this is not a good fit for me. Spend a long amount of time on the same mouthpiece, and that'll allow you to gauge whether, and then you can go back to the old mouthpiece, and you find out, you know what, I like the sound of this one better, but at least you have that sound in your head. So if you have some equipment, stay on the equipment as long as possible until you feel like it's time to switch. You feel like it's time to switch, you switch. Now, why do we not switch? Because they're, especially sax players, you get into this thing where you're just switching mouthpieces all the time and buying new mouthpieces. And trumpet, I actually have my table. I have like let me see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 mouthpieces for trumpet and some for trombone. Now they're for different sounds. I know what each mouthpiece does, but I normally just play on one mouthpiece. Now, if you're asking me what's my setup on alto, it's a Jody Jazz Super Jet, and I also have a I think this is the Olegature Jody Jazz Super Jet, and I'm playing Legier synthetic reeds, but you couldn't tell. And I actually sometimes I adjust the reed, and the number size of this is a 7. On my tenor, I play a Berg Larson with a synthetic size 3 reed, also Olegature. I'll show you that right there. That's this guy. For trombone, I use two mouthpieces. I use a Bach, an old school Bach, Vincent Bach Corporation mouthpiece, 7C, and I also have a 6.5 AL that I use for different, a bigger sound timbre. Mark likes the 6.5, so when I record him, I use with the 6.5. But mostly for all my other stuff, I use the 7. Um, so it just depends. I mean, personal preference. I don't know what size I have on my flugel, but it's a Yamaha mouthpiece. The brand of my mouthpiece on trumpet is a Dennis Wick, and it's a size 1 1/4. And if you saw that weird thing I have on the mouthpiece, I'm gonna show you real quick. This is a Kruger brass. It's just an extra weight. I like playing with it. I like heavy horns, so we'll try to make this horn as heavy as possible. I don't know. I just like the way it feels, like the way it resonates. So it brings me to another number 2. Fill the room, resonate. Fill the room. When you play, you want to fill this whole entire room with your sound, and you got to actually put your ears mentally in front of the horn to fill the room up to get the whole sound of your horn. Now I'm giving an example on trumpet. Now this is a bad example of a very small sound. I'm playing very soft. I'm not putting that much air. Okay, now I want to open up, and the inside of my mouth, I'm saying ah. Okay, ah, and that allows me to get a little bit bigger sound. Also, I'm pushing the air through the horn. Once again, relaxed sound. I'm listening long tones. I'm listening for all those things, and just relax. A nice big sound. Okay. Now it's harder to play soft than it is to play loud. So I recommend practice soft. Okay. Practice playing soft, because on trumpet, everybody's just playing loud and louder and louder. But if you play soft, it gives you another color, another dynamic, and it's a lot harder to play soft than louder. And also, the key to high notes on trumpet is basically playing soft. If you can squeak it out, that note will eventually turn in. That squeak will turn into a note. So they say today's squeaks are tomorrow's notes. Okay, and squeak could be like just a very small sound. So I'll give you an example. And I'm very relaxed when I'm playing that high G. I'm just relaxed, and then I'm just gonna try and squeak some notes out above that and see what pops out. Now it's almost a high, a high C. Now I'm just squeaking it out, and I'm working on my range. I'm still working on my range, okay, but I got a good solid range between all the way up to a high G. And it's very important to play relaxed, especially on trumpet. Just relax, and this is a way that I gauge my embouchure. I'll get to that in a second. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So fill the room. Find a target object in the room and play to that object. Like I have a speaker over there. I'm gonna play to that speaker. Okay, and I'm making sure the sound is going to that speaker. And it helps me also when I'm recording to put enough air to breathe. And when I'm in the studio with Mark, I say, you know what? I forgot to breathe. Sorry. Take a deep breath, okay? Number 3 on this first little part, we're talking about embouchure and posture. Number 3 is the baby rule. Play as if there was a baby sleeping or playing in the room. which means play everything as best as possible. Make it musical. You know, it's easy to make noise, you know, and that's fun for a second, but you want to play things musical and play things that whatever you play, whether it's a major scale, let's make it musical. Make it musical. Even a major scale can be very melodic and beautiful. Number three, dynamics. Now let's play. Dynamics are a very integral part, very important part of playing your instrument. For example, soft to loud. So, for example, if everything's monotone or everything's at a loud voice, and I'm just talking like this the whole time, everything is loud. After a while, you could get bored. But if I change it up and I start talking like this, and then all of a sudden, I have the attention of the audience. Now you notice my cadence change, my dynamics change. Those are musical elements that we can apply. Vibrato, number five, vibrato and effects. You can use half valves, growls, shakes. These are all different effects that you can apply to your sound. Now, for saxophone, my concept is to play like a violin. Now, keep in mind, I started on brass first. So it took me a couple years to figure out that a violin was not, a saxophone was not a trumpet. So this is my emulation, my imitation of a violin. And I sometimes even do that during worship. I find that especially now with the rock worship, everything's very punchy and everything's very driven. A string, I pretend like I'm a string section, and that's kind of how I get by on a lot of the, like Bethel, the Hillsong, and all the other um, songs that you might elevation stuff that you might hear. Because believe it or not, we play. A lot of us play in churches, and those are the music that's the music that we have to play. You know, so that's the way I kind of a way I fit in. Less is more. Now, if I'm listening to one of those songs and I'm just doing some gospel stuff, sometimes it doesn't match. It just doesn't fit. So I do like a violin sounding, a string sounding, a cello sounding uh, effect, and that allows me to break through. Um, and number six is relax and play. Just relax and play. Remember, relax. You should always have a relaxed posture, a relaxed approach to playing your instrument, especially the woodwind and brass, because they take air. You don't want to be forcing or be shaking playing these high notes. You know, and I give an example, even like altissimos shouldn't be hard. It's just a matter of changing the mouth. Now I'm going to give you this quick little thing about relax. I'm going to talk about the inside of your mouth. I talked about the aw shape. For altissimos, I'll do the E. Aw for the low and E for the high. And I'll give you an example. I'm saying E and the tongue is towards the roof of my mouth. And the same concept I apply for trombone and for trumpet. And if I were to do what they call lip slurs, it's a great exercise to build range on trumpet as well. And it's basically saying ah, e, ah, e. and it's a great exercise for range. And helps you manipulate the sound. Now I'm gonna play a scale just using ai. And that's great exercise for range building because it teaches you to relax and use the airstream to your advantage to play some of those higher notes. Now let's focus a little bit on the saxophone. Um, uh, the saxophone, things I have there are mouthpiece. Mouthpiece is a very important part of your sax. Make sure you have an easy, plain mouthpiece that allows you to access the full range of the horn and sounds good. So you got the best of both worlds. It has to sound good. You have to like it. If you like the way it sounds, that's what matters the most. Okay. Um, you like the way it sounds and you're able to access low and high. That's a good mouthpiece. Also, reed choice. Kanya, giving the right reed size. So remember, not all reeds are created equal. So you might get a box of reeds. They're all different. They're all going to be different, especially there's a piece of bamboo cut and it's nature. It's like a fingerprint. They're not always going to play the same. So check all your reeds. I usually go through a whole box of reeds when I was playing cane reeds. I would go through a whole box of reeds and find the top two reeds. And with that one, I would stick to the number one reed. Now, I would also file it to get it to where I want it to sound. That's something that's a little more intricate. You can look that up. But, and maybe 3 or 4 reeds are bad. That happens. And maybe just one is good. So reed choice is important. A reed that's not too hard to play, that's easy to play and sounds good. Leaks on your horn. So I've also had students that taken their first lesson with me and their horn is not playing a note because it has a leak on it. So I want to challenge you, try some low notes, and that's kind of how you check the leaks. And I'm doing some of those low notes and they're popping out pretty good, which means my horn is sealing pretty good. If you're unable to play some of those low notes, then you might have a leak on your horn. If you're finding some notes are more difficult to play than others, you might have a leak on your horns. I recommend taking it to a professional where they can look at it. I many times have tried to fix my leaks and they end up worse. So here's another quick little tip: sticky pads. How many of you drink soda or coffee or tea or something? It goes into the pad and it gets a little sticky. My G sharp sticks all the time. You could get a dollar bill, a $5 bill, put it in there, and it acts like a little light gray sandpaper, and just pull it out and close the pad on the dollar bill and pull it out. It's a quick little trick. They also like a little bit of baby powder, just a tiny amount would help the pads from sticking. But I've seen for a lot of professionals that go through their whole horn and do every pad, with a special sticky pad um, device, like it's a little piece of paper with like powder on it before they play because the gig is just that important. So it's make sure you don't have any sticky pads. I've done gigs where I haven't checked if my pads are sticking, and I played a G natural instead of a G sharp. Boy, I was in big trouble. So I had to pull it off in the middle of my performance. So check that because those pads do get sticky from time to time. Now, if you don't have dollar bill and you're in a quick bind, I usually just run my finger along the rim, you know, of the of where I think it's sticky, and I can feel it. I run my finger right here on the rim, try not to move the pad too much, and I can feel already there's a little bit of residue, but that also helps it to just not stick. Now I'm gonna move into trumpet. Okay. Um, Trumpet. Now, the horn choice is very important. It's important. Not remember, not every sax, every trumpet, all the instruments, even though they're the same. And this is another quick tip: every mouthpiece is different. Doesn't matter if it's the same brand. Every horn is different. It doesn't matter if they came out the same mold and everything's exactly. You think everything is exactly the same. Even a millimeter of difference here or there, or a more metal, or the way things are bent, or just soldered, can make a difference in how the horn plays. So when buying a horn, I recommend trying several different horns and going back and forth, and take your time, because this is a lifetime investment. The horns are not cheap. And then again, just a quick shameless plug. I'm sponsored by Victory Instruments and Growling Sax. And I, like you see this tenor, this is a pro tenor. I sell these. If you guys are interested, at the end, my email's in there, and we can work out pricing. I got special pricing for students of mine. And this is also a Victory instrument, trumpet, pro trumpet. So that being said, try all the horns over and over and over. And also comes a mouthpiece. Might be the same 3C or 1.5C mouthpiece, but they're all gonna play. I played 1.5Cs that feel like 5Cs. You know, they're just totally different. All the horns will play. I mean, all the mouthpieces are gonna play different in some shape or form. So when I'm trying out mouthpieces, I'll spend hours going back and forth, and I'll go back. And once I find the one I like, I'll stick to that one. And when again, that's the one that plays the easiest for me and has the best sound. So, and when picking a horn, be careful. Pick a horn that it's easy to play, sounds good, and doesn't have a lot of pressure when you're playing. It's real free blowing. And tuning is a good thing to check on a horn. There's a lot of horns that are coming out of Asia right now that a while back I bought a brand new trumpet. I'm not going to say the name of the trumpet because I don't want to bash this company, but it was totally out of tune. It looked like a great, beautiful horn, and the upper range was totally out of tune. I was playing a high A, and I had to bring my slide all the way out just to get it in tune. So it's something I wouldn't expect from a pro horn. So, and that's just the tubing is either too short or too long. So tuning is a good thing to check also when you're picking a horn. Just because not everything that glitters is gold. There's a saying. No todo que brilla es oro. So remember, just because it looks nice, it has to play nice, because sound is the most important thing about the horn. It might be an ugly horn, but if it plays good and you like it, that's what people are gonna hear recording. The valves. Simple. I'm gonna show you the kind of oil I use. I have another bottle that's full, but I barely have a little bit in there. This is called Blue Juice. I use this. There's different brands out there. This one is really stinky. It smells weird. It smells like an engine something, but for me it works really good. I put it on all my trumpets, and I oil the valves, because especially before I record, I oil the valves up. It just makes it easier. They're not sticking. It's just part of the maintenance. Also, check for leaks on the trumpet. The trumpet can also have a leak. I've also had trumpets where the second valve right here was leaking and water was coming out there. I've had trumpets where the cork has deteriorated and there's a leak and the water's just dripping out. Now, if that's the case, when you're playing, you're losing compression and the air is escaping there, and that hurts your playing. So make sure you have good corks. If a cork ever fell off, I just stick something like a piece of paper on there, close it up, and let's go. Let's keep it moving. So it's important to check your horn for leaks as well. Now let's move on to trombone. The mouthpiece is very important. On trombone, we talked about that trombone trumpet. Find a mouthpiece that fits you. Also, grease the slide. It's going to allow you just to play easier and not fight the slide. Now, my slide is semi-greased, and as you see, it just moves very easy, and that helps me play faster and play with a little bit more ease. Now, if I want to put a little grease on there, I'm about to record. I could just throw a little valve oil on here too. I have some Yamaha Grease. This is trombone slide lubricant Yamaha. It's great. I throw some of this on there and it works amazing. There are different types you can put on the slide, but it's good to have a nice, good slide. Also on trombone, a little bit of logistics. I'm telling you this because I've seen a lot of amateur trombone players that they're very slow in their positions. You got to be quick. Now think about when you're playing trumpet, the valve goes down and up really fast, right? Down and up. And you gotta duplicate that. So the movement from F concert to A flat is just like that. And on saxophone, it's like that. So it's that fast. I'll give you an example. So in order to get that fast, you got to be very quick and very precise on your positions when playing trombone. Also, in your scales, be very precise. Trombone is a very fluid instrument. Tuning is fluid, so you got to be listening to tuning constantly and know your positions, know where they're at, know where they fall. And there's times that I play, like I just played this track A minor right now, and I had just adjusted my tuning for another recording, and I'm playing the track and I'm like, oh, my position is a little bit off, so I automatically had to readjust. So it's important to spend some time on your horn and know where your positions, the general vicinity of your positions on the slide. Now, also another quick thing on trombone is, you see this, like an Italian guy, move your wrist. Okay, it's gonna help you, and I usually just kind of like that, and it just lets me get there really fast to certain positions. And this brings me to another point. This is We're moving on. This is all this that I've been talking about was just listen, and we're still in the learn. Okay, you're listening to me right now. Now we're gonna move into the learn, right? We're listening, now we learn, now we apply it. Okay, now music is a language, it's a universal language, and it's important to learn your major scales. This is one of the most important things you can do as a musician. This might be very basic for a lot of people that are on here, but then again, I've seen people that have been playing for years professionally and still don't know their major scales, and they struggle that much more because of it. Have you ever played in a worship service or played and you played the wrong note because you don't know what key you're in? And I call it fishing for notes. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. Now, if you can lock into the key, you know what scale to use, you know what notes, you know the positions, you're going to hit it right every time. So that's very important. Learn your major scales. It's the center of the musical universe. Major scales are the center of the they're the gospels. They're very important. The first 4 books of the Bible, it's very central to everything, because all the scales that we know and we learn are derivatives are derived from the major scale. So it's important to learn all 12 major scales in several octaves. And I'll give you a quick example. I might mess up, but check it out. I haven't played this. So those are the 12 major scales. Might have flubbed a couple notes here and there, but the the general concept is there. It's something great to practice. If I'm ever feeling clunky, I'll just do that. And it helps me get my fingers going, get my breath going, get my metabolism going, get my mind going. It's important not just to know your scales here, positions, but know them mentally. Now, my semester exam was saying the 12 major scales in under a minute. So I want to challenge you to do the same thing. Say all 12 major scales in under a minute, because that means you know them here, not just here. You're not guessing. Okay. I'm checking out for questions too. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and shoot it on down. So major scales. And my progression for major scales is basically all 12 major scales chromatically. Now, some people do it the circle of fifths, circle of fourths. I teach all my students the major scales chromatically because I want them to have a full picture of music as a whole. So they do, all my students do chromatically. They do all the scales. I just did them chromatically. I didn't do it in fifths or fourths because it's easy to get confused. So as we're building a complete picture from top to bottom, from bottom to top of the scales chromatically. Major scales, now major chords, okay? Now this brings me to another thing. The number system is very important if you're gonna learn to improvise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay? If we're in the key of C, C is 1. Who can tell me what number 2 is? We're in the key of C, we're playing the C major scale. What's number 2? Good job, guys. Number 3, E, 4. Okay, sorry, 7. What's 7? Who can chime in? What's 7 of C? Oh, they're quick. These guys are real quick. Good. So it's important to know your number system because this will help you learn patterns, right? Some people say, I don't copy people. I want to do everything new. Well, your music's gonna sound like nothing anybody's ever heard of. That could be a good thing. It could also be a bad thing. Nobody will listen to it because it's just really weird and out there, but at least you like it. So music, it comes by listening. There's nothing new under the sun. If we listen, we can imitate that music and make it our own. Okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But major chords, the formula for a major chord is 1, 3, 5. So if I am the key of G, what's the 3 of G? Good job. You guys are real quick. Okay. So any key you're in, 1, 3, 5. That's how you build a major chord. Minor chord, you flat the 3. Okay. Now what's the flat 3 of D. Somebody tell me real quick. Flat 3. There we go. Good job. So flat 3 of D is F. So in order to know that, you got to know that F and the D major scale, F is F sharp. So you got to flat it, and then it becomes F. It becomes natural, right? So it's a flat 3. That's how you build a minor chord. 7 chords, you add the 7 on top. 9 chord, you add the 7 and the 9. 11, sharp 11. 13, and that's how you just build. And it's a cool way to play your chords, and it starts to sound very jazzy. Now you can flat the 7, or you could keep it natural. You can flat the 3, or you could keep it natural, you know. So it's a cool way to play, and I'll give you an example. So here's just a regular arpeggio, 1 3 5 8 or 1. So I start adding a natural 7 on there. I'm gonna start getting jazzy already. A natural 7 at the top. Now I'm gonna start on a natural 7 and then do the arpeggio. Now listen to this. This is a pretty cool little lick. You're already starting to sound a little bit jazzy, okay? So, and I'm gonna add extensions to that. I'm gonna add the 9. Now I'm gonna start on the 7 and end up on the 9. Here it goes. So I put a little rhythm to that, you know, triplet feel or anything. I'm already starting to get some cool little lines. Now you're saying, oh, now you're just getting fancy. Well, I'm just hitting the 5 again, going back to 3, you know, and I'm going back and forth and toggling back and forth between the notes, adding rhythm, adding dynamics, adding accents, and I'm making music right now just by doing chords. Now, it's a cool way to practice the major scale. It's a little bonus, is take the 1 3 5 and move it up one step and do the same pattern, skipping 1, 2, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7, and you'll get a lot of really cool sounds. So I'll give you an example. So I'm doing 1 3 5, 2 4 6, 3 5 7, and imagine if I were to add the 9 on that on each chord, 2 4 6 8. I'm already getting some really cool jazzy sounds, and that's just the major scale. Isn't that such a cool thing, cool concept? So that's the power of the major scale. It's very important. It's important to learn all your chords in each scale. So moving on, going a little bit deeper into major scale kingdom. Another way I practice major scale is using different patterns. So maybe skip 1, 1 3 2 4, and I have a video on YouTube where I talk more in depth and I write out the numbers for this. But it's a pattern where I skip 1, go down 1, skip 1, and go down 1. So here's another one. Now, if you're familiar with the Arbin book, a lot of those patterns are evident, are written out there in that. So another way is I'm just going to give you a couple random examples. Okay, different patterns that I'm using, and I can use all of these when I'm improvising, all of these cool patterns. If I add some rhythm to it, and you can already start making some very cool melodic patterns. Maybe I'll add, if you're familiar with the grace note or trill, I can add a couple of those, and this is what it sounds like. Just major scale improv, just improving on a major scale. Here's a grace note. I'm just doing like little trills here and there. I'm trying not to do chromatic because we're not even there yet, and we might not get to that. But if I were to do like chromatic approaches and closures, it would sound a lot different. I'll just give you a quick example of that, but it's a little bit more complicated. Um, uh, Chromatic approach, trying to hit the right notes, it would sound like this. So I'm using more of a chromatic approach on that. Some enclosures might sound like this. So that might sound like a foreign language to you, but all of that is based off of the major scale. Okay, so moving on. Pentatonic, major pentatonic. The power of the major pentatonic, it is the ultimate scale that you can use to fake your way through any, almost any worship song. The major pentatonic, you almost can't lose unless it changes key. You guys let me know how we are on time, if we should be wrapping up.
So we got about 30 minutes, and there are 7 good questions. So we could hit a couple
Okay, cool.
questions if you want, and then go to that.
Yeah, let me finish.
Or
the
you can
major
finish the pentatonic. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish about 3 things, and then we'll stop right there, and then we'll go into questions. So 3 things: the power of the major pentatonic. You can do that in patterns as well. There are many patterns, but I encourage you, learn your major pentatonic. A cool thing that I do is I pretend like I have a drum beat in my head, and I'll just improvise. I've been doing a lot of trumpet, so let me get the sax in the house. So major pentatonic, I'll pretend like there's a beat going on, and then I'll improvise on every major pentatonic chromatically going up. So, for example, I'm just going up major pentatonics and doing improvisation on each one, just checking major pentatonics. A cool way to do it. I'll put a backing track on YouTube, and I'll play to that, and I'll just do a check on that and see what kind of interesting ideas I can come up with. So then moving on, blues scale is a derivative of the minor pentatonic. So before that, take a pause. Minor scales, minor chords, minor pentatonics. And if you know all your major scales, you automatically know your minor scales, your minor chords, and your minor pentatonics, because they're what they call the relative minor. So you probably already know this. A B flat concert major scale is also a G minor. A C major scale is also a minor scale. You just start on A instead of C, you get the A minor scale. It's called the relative minor. You can look that concept up. So if you know all 12 major scales, you automatically know your minor scales. You just have to start on a different note. Cool, right? Same thing goes for the pentatonic. Major pentatonics are also minor pentatonics. The name just changes. Okay, minor chords, major chords. If you learn all those 6 things, we can move on to blues scale. You move on to blues scale, you add an accidental, a sharp 4. Okay, now I'll give you an example of a minor scale. And there's what they call the blue note, the sharp 4. It's a C sharp. I'm in the key of concert B flat, G for alto saxophone, and I add that one little note, and it makes a world of a difference. That's a blues scale. That's the power of patterns and the power of learning your scales automatically. Just apply rhythm to it. Remember, less is more. Okay. And then you can move on to harmonic minor, melodic minor, so on and so forth. There are many other scales you can learn: diminished, whole tone, but everything is derived from the major scale. So we're going to stop right there. I have a couple little other things, but I think that's a good stopping point. A lot of information I gave you. Let's hit some questions. And Connor, do you want to introduce those questions for me? I'm trying to look here.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, so Mark is asking, can you speak on reed moisture and how it affects tone and tuning?
Reed moisture. It is important. If your reeds are left out, they warp. And the cane reeds, they warp, they move a little bit. So you're going to want to keep them. And there's also what's called reed revitalizer. There's different reed cases that kind of keep your reeds kind of moist and stuff like that. But anytime somebody wants to play my horn, I just tell them, smell the mouthpiece. And that immediately stops them from playing the horn, because that thing gets stinky. You gotta want to wash that baby out. It's a little hygiene right there. So keep the reeds clean, because things get on there. It comes from your mouth, the saliva, all kinds of stuff. Your tacos, whatever you're eating goes into that mouthpiece. So it's good to keep that baby clean. But reed moisture is very important. I don't have to worry about that because I use synthetic reeds. Mark, you got something?
Yeah, it's more of an encouragement. Yeah, by the way, for those who just keep in mind what you're eating right before you play, of course, because it comes out and you're going to drip. You should have a drip bucket. I think everybody should have a little something, because, yeah, how many times trombonists have dropped their spit all over my floor. It's awesome. But
that's a little pro tip. That's a good pro tip.
Yeah. I would say this. Yeah. There's not enough horns in the world. And especially in different things like that. So what I would encourage you guys to do is not just learn your scale, not just this and that, but use those things, utilize those as building blocks to come up with simple melodies. I can't think of a time when a sax player or a trumpet player or a trombone player in our band in the past has come up with a line that we didn't incorporate in the song. And that'll be the same thing for your worship team or for your band. So don't wait for somebody else with the ideas. Come to somebody with a few ideas. Say, I have this, and think subtle, long notes. Don't think, look at me, but think like, how can I make it into the song and accentuate the lyric, accentuate the vibe, the overall feel. And so I want to challenge you to do that. If you're playing worship this week or 2 weeks from now and they've already given you the songs, play the song, play yourself playing the part, and record it just with your phone and send it to your worship pastor and say, hey, is it all right if I add this? I have no problem not doing it. I just had this idea, and so foster that creativity.
Great information. And I think, Marcus, you're speaking to an assembly, everybody playing together moments, which is a whole nother beast. And you're totally right. The song is king. If you stick out and what you're playing is awkward and sticks out and takes your attention from God to you, and you're fighting with the vocalist, you're fighting with the guitar player to get your licks in, and you're fighting, that's not a good spirit. Usually when I play with this is a good point, because when I play with other horn players, it's important that you work out horn lines, and somebody has to take the lead on that and say, hey, let's write these notes down, or let's make a horn line that we can play together. Because what happens when you're playing in a worship team and somebody's playing and you're worshiping, and here comes the new guy who's playing also the same, and you guys are playing, and it's just musical chaos. So when I show up on a bandstand, first person I go to is for the worship leader, of course, but then I talk to the guitar player, because me and the guitar player, if he's playing over me, I'm gonna have to back down, even though I'm the guest. I'm gonna back down, because obviously that person doesn't understand the etiquette of a guest and letting him play. The saxophone player, all I got is solos. The guitar player, you can do chords. Keyboard player, you can do chords. Everybody else has an ability except for the bass player. Bass player can do chords as well, but all I have is solo and adding the extra little icing on the top. That's all I have. I can't do chords and stuff. So if you're taking that, I'm gonna have to step back now and listen for the moment. When to play is a very important thing. Always play in the empty spaces. You can plan out where you're going to play. You can talk to the worship leader. They can give you a signal. When I play in a lot of Spanish churches, they go like that. They do the horn line. Okay, that's when the horn line's coming in. We planned it. We practice. We're playing together. We're playing in tune, and it sounds great. But when you don't do that, and it's just a free-for-all, it's chaos, and it's not up to a world standard, really. And I see a lot of churches that are not playing up to a standard of excellence. They're out of tune. Everybody's screaming, playing high notes, and they're missing the high notes, and they're not playing together. There's no dynamics. There's no articulation. There's no phrasing. And anybody who's not Christian and goes to that, they'll be like, you know what? It sounds okay. People are just used to it. I'm used to it, whatever. But when you really hear a tower power horn section, you're like, that's what it's supposed to sound like. So that's a very important part. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that in. We have any more questions here? I know we got a lot of stuff.
Real
here.
Quick, I remember there was a guy who he'd show up at our concerts, and he'd have a trumpet, and he'd be in the front row, and he'd be playing rubbish the whole time. It was so bad. It was so bad. There's nothing better than a good trumpet, and nothing worse than a bad trumpet. And the funny thing is, when we would record three guys in the room, with those three guys in the room, we'd always blame it on the trumpet player because it stands out the most.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Let's blaze through these questions. Who are your favorite horn players, both brass and woodwinds?
Okay. Favorite horn players. Let me see. Favorite horn players are trumpet. Wynton Marsalis is one of my top trumpet players because he says so much with just one note. He just says so much with just one note. Every note he plays is very important, and you can tell. I've seen him live. I actually had the opportunity to sit in and play with him and the band in a competition. It's just magical. He can play. Wynton Marsalis can sit here and play a whole concert by himself, and you'll never be bored. It's just so much music, so much harmony. Another trumpet player, which was one of my top heroes growing up, Arturo Sandoval from Cuba, a great trumpet player, has a very awesome concept, discipled by Dizzy Gillespie, a great concept of jazz, just a really cool person. If you ever hear him talk, these guys, they're a little rough around the edges, like we all are at times and moments, but he has so much wisdom about trumpet playing, and he's just raw energy, the best, by far one of the best musical concerts I've ever been to, Arturo Sandoval. And then let's move on. Those are my two top trumpet players. Maybe Wayne Bergeron for the lead stuff. Who else I'm really listening to? Brian Lynch on trumpet as well. Um, and when he's playing a lot of Latin stuff, trombone, Comrade Herwig, Francisco Torres, great. With Elliot Mason, awesome trombone players. And if you ever heard Conrad Herwig play Latin, listen to Eddie Palmieri's recordings, and he's playing on there with Brian Lynch. Some of the most amazing things I've heard. Just a great concept, and he's just a giant guy, and his trombone playing is amazing. Elliot Mason plays so fast, and his execution is flawless. He also plays the bass trumpet as well. So too, Francisco Torres, also Latin. I mean, I always try to gravitate to Latin because I feel like my thing is Latin jazz. Sax players. For worship, I really listen to like a Warren Hill sound. Dave Koz is very commercial. Everything he plays is together. Richard Elliott and tenor. His favorite tenor player, Kirk Whalum, hands down. I've seen him live. It's magical. He loves the Lord, and he's a great musician, great musicianship, and he's not scared just to preach the gospel at any venue. Usually his last song is Falling in Love with Jesus, and it's just amazing. Who else? So that's sax players. Warren Hill has a great sound. I love his sound. I listen to it. Try and emulate that. In the Christian realm would be Rudy Rodriguez, of course, a pioneer in the Christian realm. Who else? I'm trying to think in a saxophone right off the top of my head. Michael Brecker on tenor. Ed Galle on tenor. Great tenor. So funky. Who else? On alto, Eric Marienthal. We cannot leave him out. Nelson Rangel. Great players. Very contemporary. I more lean towards the more contemporary players. Kenny Garrett, more traditional jazz, but also very funky as well. Any other questions?
Real quick, by the way, we have Avion's album that you played on, and I want to encourage them, if they make a donation today to christafari.com/donate, they'll get a free copy of the album as a gift. And you played a mean trombone solo. Have you had a chance to hear the album yet? I sent it to you.
Man, I heard bits and pieces of it, man. I really had to sit down.
It's so good.
Masterpiece.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. If I were to just, now it's hard. You just mentioned like 20 different artists. If I were to say, trumpet, listen to one album. Trumpet players, listen to one album and only one album. What's that one album that you would recommend that they listen to?
Man, trumpet players. It's an album called Danzón by Arturo Sandoval. I've actually looked for it as of recent, and I could not find it, but it's called Danzón. And if not, Hot House by Arturo Sandoval is another great album. But my all-time favorite, also Brecker Brothers, Brecker Brothers album with Michael Brecker. Anything with Michael Brecker is top. But one of the albums that was definitely opened my ears to jazz and Latin and just great sounding horns and trumpets and things like that. I literally listened to this album and it just opened up Pandora's box for me. I still have a long way to go, but this was a great album and very detrimental in informing who I was as a horn player. Is Machito 1983, a Grammy award-winning album. I don't forgot what it's called, but the artist is Machito, and there's some great, amazing solos. Another album that was totally amazing, Michel Camilo, One More Once, I think it's called, where he plays, I think it's Caribe, and that's a great album. I remember Dave Weckl, all the top heavy hitters are playing on that album, John Pataducci. So great rhythm section. Those are great albums that definitely shaped me as a horn player and a section player. And then for far as horn section, definitely anything from Tower Power, TOP. Hearing those horn sections actually helped me record, and I record all these instruments simultaneously. But that's a whole nother thing. What else we got as far as questions?
pedal tones on brass, are they good for warming up? Are pedal tones on brass good for warming up?
Yes, yes, they are. I'm glad you said that. If I come into the studio and I'm a little bit stiff, my lips are just stiff. I do pedal tones on trumpet. Yeah. So pedal tones, we just get the stiffness out. Couple seconds of a minute or so. Pedal tones just gets the stiff, gets the lip, the blood flowing, gets the skin on the lips moist, and allows it just to move around.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. Yeah,
What
I've
else
heard
we
that a
got?
lot. I didn't know what that was called. Do different temperatures affect the tone of the saxophone?
Yes, they do. Colder temperatures, hot temperatures. You don't want to leave your sax in the car or trumpet in the car because the pads can come off. Things can happen in the heat, especially here in Texas. I never leave my instrument in the car because it'll die. It'll just melt, and I'll get the horn and it's like it just plays weird. The extreme temperatures are not good for horns. I usually keep them in an air conditioned room. Um, so it affects the tuning as well. So if you're ever playing in a gig where it's really cold and you guys travel all around the world, you got to warm up the horn. Just get it nice and warm. Blow some hot air through the horn to warm it up, because it does affect the sound.
Awesome. Okay, George Smith, what advice would you have for a beginner with a B flat sax?
B flat tenor sax, a beginner. What advice? Um, Basically, I would go to this: listen, learn, and play. Listen to the sound that you like, try and imitate it. Learn your scales. Start very simple. Just learn a couple notes every day. Learn maybe one major scale and just work on that. Work on having a good embouchure, a nice firm embouchure that will support the notes and allow you to play in tune. Now, it's not what you play, but it's how you play. You don't have to play a million notes to turn somebody's head. You just got to play with your heart and let that penetrate.
Awesome. Okay. This is not on the question in the questions. I believe Mark Magyar was talking earlier about melodica and bamboo instruments, like let's say flute. What type of things could you apply to other wind instruments that you've learned today? Before we get to the next question, like melodica or flute or things like that.
Yeah, like those little metal whistles and all that. Oh, that's awesome, amazing. All these concepts apply to that. Everything we're talking about, being musical, dynamics, your cadence, everything we learn musically. Music is a language, And if you say like, "Oh, I have a problem improvising," and just have a conversation. You're improvising at that moment. You're coming up with sentence structure and things like that. So anybody can improvise. Anybody can do it. It's just practicing it and having the right encouragement, being inspired, and running with that. So all of these as far as like the dynamics, playing soft, having a nice dynamic range, the baby in the room playing, and everything you play, make it melodic, make it good. If you practice that way, you'll definitely play that way.
Awesome. Okay, now different mic placements for the best sound and audio. Mark asked also, what type of mic placements would you have?
Good. And I actually have some of this in here, but we're we're in time constraints. But when I'm recording, and really quick, say for example, the mic is right here, you want to plant your feet at a certain distance. Don't move. Okay, because any subtle movement will change the dynamic of the dynamic range, the volume range. So you want to just stay in one spot. And I just kind of plant my feet and I stay in that one spot, try not to move. And that's why I just have my instruments right here, and I just grab them all, set them up, let's go. I'm just trying to stay in the same spot. Okay. Now for alto, I want to have the mic to where, the bell, it's a kind of 50-50 split. And you'll hear it. If you're listening to the microphone and you go like that, you'll hear the sweet spot where it's most resonant, So I'll find that most resonant spot and I'll play right to that. For trumpet, I definitely a couple feet away when I'm recording trumpet. I mean, I probably will do more about an arm's length and I'll be playing right about here. you know, because you don't want to be right on the mic, especially if it's condenser mic. It'll blow the mic, it'll distort. So also your room needs to be dead. You need to have some kind of sound treatment in your room. I have like a sound panel that I put behind the mic that deadens it, and that really, really does help when you're recording. Because if you're just playing and the room is real live and you can hear all the echo, you're gonna hear more of the room than your horn.
I a little side note: our horn players in the past, when they've used mics that aren't clipped onto their horns, which we prefer, they have a little panel, little circular thing on the other
Right.
side of the mic. Have you ever used that? And they use
Yeah,
that,
I
I
do
think, so
have
they
one.
can hear themselves. So they
Yeah,
can
I
hear
do have.
themselves, right?
I have one of those when when you don't have a clip on, you have one of these, like one of these mics. I have one of those little panels. I have one with a cutaway for the trombone. I used to use that, but now everybody's using in ears. You can't hear yourself anyway, so it's just like, But that is, if you're in a situation where everybody's really loud, that is a good thing, a sound bag to have, and it bounces back your sound. There's also make one for the sax that's right on the horn, but nowadays
Nice.
everybody's using in ears. So, my best recommendation when you're recording or when you're playing, try and have one ear out and one ear in. One ear out, not completely. You can have it even when I'm recording, I have one headphone halfway off so I can actually hear the room and hear my sound no matter how much intensity I'm putting, but I also want to hear the track in a good way. Having one ear off allows me to actually play better and put more power behind the horn.
Nice. Okay, trumpet player. Can you play multiple scales, major, minor, pents, blues, etc.? I struggle on how to apply. He says can play those. I struggle on how to apply or use them. Any ideas? So I think he's saying he can play the scales, major, minor, pent, blues, but how to apply them?
Great. So, and this goes back into what I said. It's not what you say, but how you say it. So, for example, um, less is more. And I'll give you a quick little story. Two people had to recite a verse in the Bible, a younger guy and an older guy. So the younger guy goes and recites really quick, and says the scripture. And the older guy takes his time, and every word that just fell off of his lips, you just felt like he lived it. He was like, maybe like saying like the Lord's, our Father who art in heaven. Just everything you play, make it be uh, 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 filled with heart and play. The Bible says play skillfully unto the Lord. So practice. If you can just play a couple notes, just start with a very simple approach. Limit yourself. Just try improvising with 3 notes. Now, if you lack inspiration, and raise your hand if you lack inspiration. This happens to every musician. You get up there, I'm playing the same things over and over and over. I'm tired of myself. I'm tired of hearing what I've been playing. Now, what's a quick way to get it inspired? Listen. Go back and listen to somebody that inspires you. Play with them. Put a song of a sax player, Kirk Whalum, that you like, and just play with him and just jam out with him. You might not be playing the same notes, but just kind of copy his sounds and his ideas and his rhythm, and it's very important to emulate and to copy other musicians and other music, because that's how we make our own language. The English language is not some alien language. We have to read books and read literature and read all these things in order to be good writers. To be good musicians, you have to go and dive into some of those deep cuts, those deep recordings, and hear things. And you are going to be a compilation of all these different influences that you hear. Usually when I hear something that I like, I'll screen record it, and I'll go back into the practice room and I'll listen to that right before I play. And I'll be like, I like that concept, and I'll try and apply it. And subconsciously, it sometimes just comes out, and I'll surprise myself.
I would add to that, listen to the other instruments. And
Exactly.
maybe even if you don't know the scales perfectly, maybe hum it first. But less is more. And this brings us to the next question. Is there any particular way to play brass for reggae compared to other genres? And I'd like to answer part of that from my take. Most of the players that I've worked with over the years, all the players did not know reggae in and out. They were primarily jazz or blues or what jazz. or big band, marching band. They had those kinds of experience. Salvation Army. I think part of it is to emote. That's the word that I
Yeah.
think you were looking for earlier, is to play from your soul, not just your mind,
Mm.
but to
Yeah.
play like how you were talking about a preacher enunciating and sharing and reading the word with emphasis. I think that just playing the notes is one thing, but to emote and to put emotion into it, reggae typically has long notes, especially with crescendo at the end, or like really staccato or really long, and oftentimes a contrast between those, and sometimes ascending or descending, and a lot of times falling with the trombone. We love that. Anything you'd like to add on that as to reggae, playing reggae versus other styles?
Right. And I'm gonna make a confession to you. I'm not well versed in reggae. I used to play in a ska band. I'm not. I can't say that I know like some of the most deep cuts, but I know music well enough to be able to. And Mark helps because he's a good producer and he knows what it sounds. So I can kind of get into that realm, you know. And there's a couple beats that I was not familiar with. I think the last time we recorded, and it just boggled my mind until I finally got it. Something turned on, a neuron connection happened. I was like, okay, I get it now. I get it. The light bulb turned on, you know. But it's important to study the genre. I'm more versed like Latin, but it's similar. Some of the beats, tropical Caribbean kind of beat, you know. So I feel like I'm able to kind of get into that genre. You know, it is different than other styles. Every style has its rules. Every style has its swing. You know, the Dominicans say a swing. Well, swing. You got to have that swing. And if you don't have that pocket, that essence, it's just black and white. You got to have those swells, those fall offs, those accents, and hearing that, and where each one of those things are. And it's important to if you can study or listen and kind of get in that realm before you record, before you play, and practice, play with, same thing like I said, play with some of those tracks. That way you can kind of get the essence of what you want to play or what's needed to be played, because we have a tool belt.
Definitely.
We show up, we got to get the right tool for the right thing. You know, if I show up to a reggae gig and, you know, I bring out my oboe, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, it might not hit, you know, unless I'm really good oboe player, you know, I might be able to make it hit, but more than likely, you know, it's going to be like a trombone. It's going to be a trumpet. It's going to be a tenor. It's going to be something. And I'm going to be right in the pocket, right in the groove.
Yeah, less Kenny G sax, please.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would say also with reggae, we do a lot of unison, a whole lot
Yeah.
of unison and octaves. Trumpet would play the higher octave, but we're down to the last two, maybe three questions here. Okay, Nacho asked, in typical reggae arrangements, the trombone plays the root note of the tenor, saxophone a third or fifth, and plays the trumpet an octave above the trombone. Is this generally the correct? There is no right or wrong way. I will say less harmony is more standard for us. A lot of unison for us, and maybe a third, occasionally a fifth, but usually it's for sure the root and the octave. What are you typically playing when we're asking you to do horn lines?
Well, I will more in orchestral arrangements, especially for the trombone. I'll be in the lower register, but for reggae, funk, anything, most pop music, I'm in the upper register on trombone. You know what I'm saying? I'll rarely go down to, you know, anything above, you know, F and play. You know, I'll play a couple notes, but nothing below low B flat. And that sound matches well with the middle octave of the trumpet. And tenor I can do. Tenor is more of a high pitched instrument, so anything I play in tenor, I won't go really same thing. What I do with the trombone, I'll do with the tenor. I'll typically do a middle range with the tenor. I won't do anything really high, and that sits well, tenor, trombone, and they all mixed on that.
Okay, two questions left. What saxophone is the best one to learn to play?
What saxophone the best learn to play?
Yeah, best
Um,
to learn to play.
the best one to learn to play is hold on a second. Let me somebody's call. I'll call you back. I'm live. I'm in a class. I'll call you right back, okay? Yeah. Okay, what's that? Where's saxophone to play?
Yeah, best saxophone to learn to play. And then the secondary question would be any types of books or resource that can help me in starting to read music.
Um, resources starting to read music. Best saxophone to learn to play. I would think alto would be pretty easy. Soprano's a little bit hairy on the tuning, it's a little bit crazy. You got to have a pretty decent tuning. But I actually started on soprano, but alto is kind of in the middle. It's easy to hold. Tenor is a big boy. You really got to have some be a little bit bigger. A little kid, I wouldn't recommend to play a tenor. But if you're kind of a bigger guy, tenor might just suit you well. You might just hit that really good. But alto is a good middle range instrument. But then again, it comes to personal preference. You know, I had a trumpet player that I was teaching for years, and he just wasn't getting it. He's like, I want to play trombone. One day I said, okay, well, let's get a trombone. So we got a trombone. He excelled tremendously. A great trombone player. Plays so loud, you know. So it's just, he just hit that right thing. He just wasn't a trumpet player. He's a trombone player. You know, you're maybe not a trombone. You're a clarinet player. What is it? Whatever you are, you got to find that instrument. It's cool to experiment. It's cool. They told me, oh, don't play this. You're going to mess up your embouchure. Don't play that. Listen, I played it all until I figured out what I liked, and I just did what I could. And then what was the other answer? Start reading music. I would get a basic.
Start reading music. Yeah.
Yeah, I would get a basic beginner book. I use Essential Elements, a basic beginner book to start learning music, and just learn the notes, ABCs. Learn all the beginning scales. There's all. Just start with a couple notes. It's there's beginner books. It's just like one note. You're learning to read. This is the age of information. I have this in my notes. Anything is available to us. If there's comes somebody that tells me, you know what, I can't do this, I don't have a teacher or whatever, you know, okay, I'll take you to somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and I'll show you a kid that can play circles around everybody because he's on YouTube every day studying and learning. You know, he just has to drive. It's all there. It's the age of information. You can access anything. And if you can't access it, you could probably hack it. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and there's all kinds of YouTube videos. There's nothing you can't learn. You don't have to be in school. You don't even have to get lessons. Although I do recommend getting lessons. And that brings me to this point real quick. I'm pretty sure we're going to finish. We might have another question, but I give lessons. I have a 6-week course that I teach, and I have several students that I take on. There's a limited amount that I can focus on each student. It's a coaching course where an artist development. I have some students that are advanced. I show them how to put songs out, how to get things out, how to do videos, how to record, how to play, how to have stage presence and things like that. And even from basic to beginner, I've had students all the way above 75, you know, and I've had great success with my course. So I recommend, if you guys are interested in my course, there's my email. That's a quick shameless plug. We have any more questions?
No, that's it.
No, that was my main question, was how can they learn more? They can learn more from you. You can teach them any one of the instruments, and I would highly recommend you guys. I've worked with horn players, the best in Nashville over the years. I worked with the best in the world, and Nick is my go-to guy. He is my A+ top. He's the number one pilot that I want flying this plane. And if you want to learn how to be the best fill in the blank horn player, reed player, he is your guy. Email him, join his class. We're not doing this. We don't get money from that or anything, but he has a musicianary t-shirt. He has a musicianary heart. He will teach you how to do this for the Lord. And we want to encourage you to use your giftings, your talents as unto the Lord. Justin, I'm heading up to you right now to teach my sermon writing class. If anybody wants to join me in just 20 minutes, I'll be teaching you how to write a sermon. And Justin's going to give us a little pitch about the other classes for next week, and then close us out with an invite regarding Avion's Fly album. Thanks, guys.
Great. So yeah, as we said, to get more information, please go visit Nick's email. And Nick, what was your email again?
nickcedillo at gmail.com. nickcedillo at gmail.com. nickcedillo @gmail. And
All right.
you guys can reach me there. WhatsApp. I also have WhatsApp. I wonder if I put my phone number on there, you guys could text me on there. Are we able to do that? Should you recommend that?
It's up to you.
I can put it up for you.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, it's 210-875-7522. You guys can text me on WhatsApp, and the country code 001. And for questions and about the course and how to sign up, pricing, and everything like that. My main goal in my life is to duplicate myself and others. And I hope you enjoyed this class and all the information. This is years and years of experience and mistakes that we've been able to share through this platform. Continue to support Christafari and continue to support all the great things they're doing in this move to disciple and raise up the nations. Go for it, buddy.
Awesome, Nick. Thank you. And I was really blessed by this class, and I even learned a few things. And I want to say thank you to the translators and moderators.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for your hard work, especially Michelle, Pedro, Marcio, and the rest of the team. You guys are amazing. And as Mark briefly said, he will be doing a sermon writing class in less than a half hour, 19 minutes. So come check that out. And next week is our last week of Ascend. So please go to ascend.com, ascendmasterclasses.com for the full list of the classes. And if the Lord leads you to donate to our ministry, go to christafari.com/donate, and we will give you the first copy of Avion Blackman's Fly album. Everyone, thank you again for joining us, and we will see you at the next class. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, guys. God bless you.